The moment Brat stepped in front of the cameras, the entire atmosphere changed. It was as if the room itself could feel the weight she was carrying. Her eyes, usually bright with confidence and fire, looked completely different. Instead of strength, they held a mixture of anger, sorrow, and shock, feelings so raw that no amount of makeup or practiced smile could hide them. Anyone watching could tell instantly that this was not a performance. This was real pain. She took a slow, unsteady breath, the kind a person takes when they're trying hard not to fall apart. Her hands trembled slightly, as though what she was about to reveal was too heavy for even her body to handle. When she finally opened her mouth to speak, her voice cracked, not from weakness, but from all the emotion she had been holding inside for so long. "I've been quiet for too long," she said. The words came out like a confession she had been afraid to make. People need to hear what really happened. This isn't gossip. This isn't some rumor someone made up. A child, an innocent, beautiful child, lost their life in Judy's pool. And the way she acted before and after. I can't keep pretending it didn't happen. The room fell silent. Not a single camera operator or crew member moved. Even the slightest sound seemed disrespectful in the middle of what she had just confessed. The audience sucked in a breath all at once, stunned not only by the tragedy itself but by the emotion in her voice. She sounded like someone who had held this truth in her chest for far too long. Someone who had lived with the memory day and night. She stopped for a moment to gather herself. Her throat tightened as she tried to steady her voice, but she pushed forward, determined to let the truth finally come out. She began describing the day of the tragedy, slowly, painfully, painting a picture that no one was prepared for. She explained that the day had started like any normal summer afternoon. There was sunshine, laughter, the sound of a child splashing joyfully in the water. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. It was the kind of moment that should have been remembered with happiness. But in a single instant everything changed. What should have been a simple day by the pool turned into a nightmare she would never forget. The child, full of energy and excitement, had been playing near the pool without anyone realizing how fast things could go wrong. Brat's voice shook as she described how Judy's carelessness, her failure to pay attention, her lack of responsibility, allowed danger to slip in unnoticed. She did not soften her words. She did not try to protect anyone. She spoke the truth exactly as she remembered it. "It happened so fast," she said. "One moment everything was fine, and the next, it wasn't." She went on to describe the screams, pure, terrified screams, the chaos as everyone rushed to help. Hands shaking, people panicking, trying desperately to save the child. She recalled the frantic attempts to pull the child out, the desperate push of hands trying to bring them back. Her voice dropped when she admitted that despite all the efforts, despite every attempt to fight against the impossible, they could not undo what had already happened. The helplessness in her voice was painful to listen to. This wasn't a dramatic story meant to gain attention online. This was her truth. This was trauma she carried in her chest every single day. As she continued speaking, it became even clearer how personal this was to her. She wasn't repeating rumors. She wasn't sharing someone else's memory. She was reliving her own. Each detail weighed heavily on her. The sound of water where it shouldn't have been. The panicked faces. The moment time seemed to freeze while her heart was racing. It all came flooding back as she spoke. Then came the part that made the entire situation even more heartbreaking. Brat began talking about her relationship with Judy, how close they once were. She described the trust they had built over the years, the laughter they shared, the bond they formed. Judy hadn't been just a partner. She had been someone Brat trusted with everything. Her home, her heart, her life. But that trust shattered the day of the tragedy. She explained that the betrayal hit her harder than anything she had ever experienced. The woman she thought she knew, the woman she thought was responsible and dependable, had shown a completely different side. One filled with carelessness and recklessness. "I loved her. I trusted her," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. And in one moment all of that was destroyed. She spoke about the nights that followed. Nights with no sleep. Nights filled with torment. She replayed the tragedy in her mind again and again, wishing she could go back and change something, anything. But no matter how many times she imagined a different outcome, it always ended with the same unbearable truth. Silence, heartbreak, and loss. Then she shifted to what shocked the audience the most. Judy's behavior before and after the incident. Brat didn't hold anything back. She explained how Judy had been warned multiple times about safety issues, warnings she brushed off as if they were nothing. Small dangers were laughed away. Basic precautions were ignored. But the most disturbing part, according to Brat, came after the tragedy. Instead of taking responsibility or expressing remorse, Judy tried to hide what happened. She tried to minimize the situation, to pretend the severity of the tragedy wasn't real. "I couldn't believe my eyes," Brat said, her tone sharp with anger. "The way she acted afterward made me question everything I ever thought I knew about her." This was more than simple carelessness. It was the moment a mask slipped off. The world always viewed Judy as a calm, responsible and well-put-together person. But behind the scenes, Brat had seen a completely different side. Someone who acted without thinking, someone who didn't take danger seriously, and someone who treated other people's lives as if they were replaceable. Brat's voice grew unsteady again as she opened up about the emotional battle she'd been fighting within herself. She explained that she had spent countless hours questioning everything she knew. She wondered if she had been blind, if she should have noticed warning signs earlier, or if she could have done something to prevent the tragedy. These weren't simple doubts. They were deep wounds that cut into her confidence, her sense of judgment, and her ability to trust her own instincts. But the deepest pain of all came from betrayal. Betrayal doesn't just leave a mark. It shakes your entire sense of safety. She admitted that the experience left her unsure of who she could trust. She didn't know if she would ever feel comfortable relying on another person again. What she went through wasn't just heartbreak. It was trauma. Trauma that settled in her spirit and would never completely disappear. As she spoke, the ripple effects of the tragedy became clearer. This situation wasn't only between her and Judy. The child's death triggered official investigations. Authorities stepped in to examine every part of what happened that day. Reporters rushed toward the story, spreading every detail across the internet. People whispered in neighborhoods, fans argued online, and strangers created their own versions of events. What began as private grief suddenly became a public spectacle, and Brat had no choice but to face it all in front of the world. She admitted the pressure felt unbearable at times. Questions came from every side. Family, friends, supporters, and even people she had never met. Everyone wanted answers. Everyone wanted to understand how something so tragic could happen. Even with the weight of that pressure, she stood strong. She decided early on that she would not hide or run away. She would tell the truth, no matter how painful it was to relive the memories. "Silence is not an option," she said firmly. Looking straight into the camera, she made her purpose clear. "I'm not doing this for revenge. I'm not doing this for attention. I'm speaking because someone has to. Someone has to tell the truth. Someone has to stand up for that child who can't speak anymore." Her words weren't just personal. They carried a message for everyone. A reminder that responsibility matters, that ignoring danger has consequences, and that staying quiet in the face of wrongdoing only invites more harm. She begged viewers to take child safety seriously, and to pay attention to warning signs before it's too late. As she reached the end of her story, her tone softened. The anger was still there, but now it was mixed with strength. She admitted that healing was slow and painful. Some days the grief overwhelmed her. Some nights she lay awake, replaying memories she wished she could erase. But she also shared that she was learning to move forward, little by little. She talked about setting healthy boundaries, depending on loved ones, and finding new strength through honesty. "Healing takes time," she said quietly. "But every day I remind myself that I survived. I'm still here. And that's something no one can take from me." Her final message felt powerful and honest. She explained that although the trauma would always remain part of her life, speaking out was her way of reclaiming control. It was her way of making sure that negligence, betrayal, and tragedy did not get buried in silence. "We have to protect the innocent," she urged. "We have to speak up when something is wrong. And we cannot let betrayal go unanswered, because sometimes betrayal doesn't just hurt, it destroys." When the video ended, her last words stayed in everyone's mind. What she shared wasn't just a story. It was a wound exposed to the world, a plea for justice and a reminder that even in the darkest moments, courage can still rise.